Okay, so
Imagine pulling out your phone and instantly knowing what anything around you is made of. Wild, right?
it is
That's the Future Molecular Reality Corporation is building with their MR1 device. We're talking utility-scale molecular sensing,
yeah,
basically making identifying molecules as easy as turning on a faucet.
yeah, it's
It's a pretty bold vision, and what's really interesting is how they're going about it. They're not just building a device, they're building a whole community around it, a global network of player scientists using the MR1 to explore the molecular world.
right. That whole player scientist thing caught my eye too. But before we dive into that, let's break down what this MR1 actually is.
So the MR1 is a portable nanopore testing device. Imagine something the size of your phone, but instead of a screen, it has this tiny sensor that can analyze molecules in liquid. It basically works by passing molecules through incredibly small pores and measuring the electrical signals they create. Think of it like listening to the whispers of molecules to figure out what they are.
Okay, so it's analyzing stuff at a seriously tiny scale. But how does that translate to me, someone who's not exactly a scientist, being able to use this thing?
That's where the brilliance of their approach comes in. The MR1 is designed to be incredibly accessible. It's open source, meaning users can tinker with it, modify it, even build their own tools. And the price point, only $300. They're really trying to put the power of molecular sensing into everyone's hands.
That's a game changer for sure. It's like taking something that used to require a whole lab and putting it in your pocket. But I imagine there are still some pretty big challenges in making molecular sensing this accessible. What are some of the hurdles they're facing?
You're absolutely right. This kind of research has traditionally been very expensive and time-consuming. Labs often work in isolation, which slows down progress.
So how does the MR1 and this whole player scientist concept address those challenges?
This is where it gets really cool. By making the MR1 affordable and the research itself engaging, they're breaking down those barriers. Remember those player scientists we mentioned? They've created this whole community. The Molecular Streaming Services Corps, or MSSC for short.
Yeah. Like a global science club, right?
Exactly. Users with MR1s can connect with others, share data, and even participate in these fun, game-like quests that involve collecting data. One example is Maxine's Quest. It encourages users to collect data from different environments while playing. It's like Pokemon Go, but for molecules.
That's brilliant. Turning potentially tedious data collection into something fun and engaging. But what about actually making sense of all that data? It's one thing to collect it, but how do they turn it into useful information?
That's where the power of machine learning comes in. All of that data collected by those MR1s out in the world, that's gold for training their algorithms. They're using both supervised and unsupervised learning to analyze it all.
Okay, so walk me through that. How does that actually work?
Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to teach a computer to recognize different types of birds. In supervised learning, you'd show it a bunch of pictures labeled robin, blue jay, cardinal, and so on. The computer learns to identify patterns in the images.
So it's like giving the computer a crash course in bird watching.
Exactly. Unsupervised learning is a bit different. It's like giving the computer a pile of bird pictures without labels and letting it figure out the patterns and categories on its own. Both methods are really powerful for making sense of large, complex data sets, like the ones coming from the MR1s.
So more data from the MR1s leads to smarter algorithms,
Right.
which makes the whole system more accurate and useful for everyone. It's a pretty incredible feedback loop.
Exactly. And here's another cool thing they're doing. They're really focused on refining a technique called ping pong translocation control.
Ping pong. Okay, now you've lost me.
Imagine trying to examine a tiny, fast-moving object under a microscope. It's a blur, right? But what if you could somehow get that object to move back and forth in a predictable pattern?
You get a much clearer look at it.
Exactly. That's essentially what ping pong translocation control does, but on a molecular level. By controlling how molecules move through those tiny nanopores, they can get much more detailed and precise measurements.
So it's like slowing down and focusing the molecular world to get a better look. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And they're using all of this to work towards something they call device-level single analyte universality.
Oh, got it. That's their long-term goal, to be able to identify any molecule in even the most complex mixture using a single MR1 device.
Wow. Okay, so if they pull that off, that really is as revolutionary as they claim. We're talking about a future where anyone could potentially identify any molecule anywhere with the device that fits in your pocket. But it sounds like they're already looking beyond even that, right? There was some mention of mechanical nanopores and sliding occlusion. That feels almost like science fiction.
It's definitely cutting-edge stuff. Imagine a nanopore that can change its size and shape on demand. That's essentially what they're aiming for with these new types of nanopores. It would be a huge leap forward in terms of being able to analyze an even wider range of molecules, from single ions to much larger structures.
It's like they're building a molecular toolkit, and they're constantly adding new and more sophisticated tools.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself, it's about how they're using it to answer big questions about the world around us. One example is the World Particle Project.
Okay. Yeah, that one sounds intriguing. Tell me more about that.
They want to use the MR1 and this whole network of users to create a global database of particles, basically a molecular catalog of the planet. Imagine the possibilities.
That's a massive undertaking. It's like crowdsourcing a map of the molecular world.
Yeah.
And from what I've gathered, the MR1 is just the first step in a much larger plan. There were hints about an MR2 and even further iterations down the line.
You're catching on. They definitely have a long-term vision for this technology. Each generation of the device will build on the last, pushing the boundaries even further. They envision a future where these devices could diagnose diseases, monitor the environment with incredible precision, ensure food safety. The possibilities are really endless.
It's clear that they're incredibly excited about the potential of this technology. But I have to ask, what does all of this mean for the average person listening right now? It's one thing to talk about the future, but where do you fit into all of this?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember that the MR1, while groundbreaking, is just the first step. It's not about curing diseases today, but it's about building towards that future. By participating in the MSSC, you're directly contributing to a scientific revolution.
So it's like being on the ground floor of something huge, a chance to be a part of a scientific movement that could change the world.
Exactly. And while the MR1 itself might not have immediate everyday applications for everyone, the data and knowledge gained from this massive collaborative effort will have a huge ripple effect across countless fields. By playing those games, exploring molecular data, and contributing to projects like the World Particle Project, you're directly shaping the future of this technology.
It's like you're not just a passive observer anymore. You're an active participant in scientific discovery. It's a pretty powerful idea when you think about it.
It really is. And it highlights the fact that groundbreaking innovation doesn't always happen in labs or universities. It can come from the collective passion and curiosity of everyday people.
That's a great point. So for someone who might be listening to this, feeling a bit overwhelmed but also really intrigued, what would you say to them? What's the most important thing for them to understand about the MR1 and this whole movement?
The key takeaway here is that the MR1 is about more than just a device. It's about democratizing access to powerful tools and knowledge, and it's about empowering people like you to become active participants in shaping the future.
I love that. And speaking of shaping the future, I'm really curious to dive deeper into some of the specific applications of this technology. We've touched on some of them, but I want to really unpack those, and I think our listeners do too. But first, let's take a quick break. Okay, so before the break, we were talking about how the MR1 could be used for things like diagnosing diseases, monitoring the environment, even ensuring food safety. That's some seriously sci-fi stuff. I want to unpack those. But first, the people behind this are just as interesting as the tech itself.
Absolutely. The founder, Chemistry, is a fascinating figure. He's known for taking an unconventional approach, kind of like a tech world Willy Wonka.
Okay, a Willy Wonka comparison. Now you have to tell me more.
Well, he keeps a pretty low profile. But from what I gather, Chemistry thrives on tackling big challenges and shaking things up. He doesn't just want to create technology. He wants to spark a paradigm shift in how we understand the world.
And he's doing that through molecular sensing.
Exactly. He sees the MR1 and the whole MSSC community as essential pieces in building what he calls a scientific super instrument.
A super instrument. Okay, now, really curious. Break that down for me. What does that even mean?
Think of it this way. A traditional scientific instrument, like a microscope or a telescope, is limited by its physical capabilities. What Chemistry envisions is a super instrument that's constantly evolving and growing, powered by a global network of individuals, each contributing their own data and insights.
So it's like the instrument itself is more than just the MR1 device. It's this whole interconnected system of people and data all working together.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is that it's constantly being refined and improved upon as more people participate. That's the power of their approach. It's not a static technology. It's a living, breathing network.
Such a cool way to think about it. It's like this whole new way of doing science where anyone can be a part of something groundbreaking. But let's bring it back to those real-world applications. What are some concrete examples of how the MR1 could actually be used to, say, Diagnose disease.
Imagine a world where you could take a simple swab, analyze it with your MR1, and get a detailed breakdown of the bacteria in your gut, the viruses you've been exposed to, even early markers for certain diseases.
Okay. That would be incredible. No more invasive procedures or waiting weeks for test results. It would totally change the game for healthcare.
It could even go beyond just diagnosing diseases. Imagine using the MR1 to monitor the effectiveness of a treatment in real time, adjusting dosages based on your body's unique molecular response.
It's like taking all the guesswork out of medicine and making it truly personalized. No more one-size-fits-all treatments.
Exactly. And it's not just healthcare. Think about environmental monitoring. Imagine using the MR1 to detect pollutants in the water supply, track the spread of airborne toxins, or even analyze soil samples to optimize crop yields.
So we're talking about a tool that could potentially revolutionize everything, from healthcare to agriculture to environmental protection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we're only just scratching the surface of what's possible. As the technology continues to evolve and the MSSC community grows, who knows what incredible applications we'll discover.
It's like you said earlier, the instrument itself is constantly evolving. But with all this talk about potential, it's easy to get caught up in the hype. Are there any downsides or limitations to this technology that we should be aware of?
That's a fair point, and it's important to be realistic. While the potential here is massive, it's not a magic bullet. One of the biggest challenges right now is simply the sheer complexity of the data. We're talking about analyzing molecules at an incredibly detailed level. And interpreting those results requires sophisticated algorithms and a lot of computing power.
So it's not just about having the MR1 device, it's about having the infrastructure and expertise to make sense of the data it generates.
Exactly, and that's another area where the MSC community plays a crucial role. By having thousands of people working together, sharing their data and insights, they're collectively building that knowledge base and developing the tools needed to unlock the full potential of this technology.
It's like a global think tank,
Yeah.
all focused on pushing the boundaries of molecular sensing. But as this technology becomes more powerful and potentially more accessible, there's always the question of ethics. Have they addressed any concerns about how the MR1 might be used or misused?
You're right to bring that up. And to be honest, that's something I'm very curious about as well. As far as I'm aware, they haven't publicly addressed specific ethical concerns yet, but I have a feeling that will become a bigger focus as the technology matures. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
For sure. Because like any powerful tool, it can be used for good or bad. But I have to say, the potential here is incredibly exciting. And what I love most is that they're not just keeping it locked away in some lab. They're putting it out there in the world, in the hands of people who are passionate about exploring and discovering.
I completely agree. It's a really refreshing approach. And it's a powerful reminder that some of the most groundbreaking innovations come from unexpected places.
It really makes you wonder, what will people discover with this technology? What kind of future are we building?
Those are the million-dollar questions, aren't they? And I think the answers are going to be fascinating.
A little bit scary, maybe, in a good way, of course.
Definitely. But on that note, let's take a step back from the big picture for a second and zoom in on some of the really interesting details about how this technology actually works.
Okay. Yeah, we keep talking about these nanopores, but I have to admit, I still don't fully grasp how those actually work on a practical level.
Fair enough. It is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Let me try to explain it in a way that's easy to visualize. Imagine a very, very thin membrane, like a soap bubble, but much, much smaller. Now imagine a tiny hole in that membrane. That's our nanopore.
Okay, I'm picturing it. It's like a microscopic doorway.
Exactly. And just like a doorway controls the flow of people, the nanopore controls the flow of molecules. When a molecule passes through that nanopore, it creates a very slight change in the electrical current.
So it's like the nanopore is listening to the electrical whispers of individual molecules.
Exactly. And by analyzing those subtle changes in current, scientists can identify the molecule that's passing through. But here's the really cool part. The size and shape of the nanopore can be tailored to target specific types of molecules.
So it's like having a set of molecular sieves, each one designed to catch a specific size and shape of molecule.
That's a great analogy, and that's just one aspect of it. They're constantly experimenting with different materials and techniques to create even more sophisticated nanopores. They've tested everything from silicon and silicon nitride to more exotic materials like boron nitride and even ruby.
Ruby, as in the gemstone.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Right. It seems counterintuitive. But it turns out that certain gemstones have properties that make them ideal for nanopore research. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of material science to find the perfect combination of sensitivity and durability.
It really highlights the ingenuity and creativity at play here. They're not just using off-the-shelf components, they're inventing entirely new materials and techniques to achieve their goals.
Exactly. And it's not just about the materials themselves. They're also exploring innovative ways to create those nanopores. They even experimented with using a Tesla coil to etch nanopores into a thin membrane.
Wait, a Tesla coil, like the ones that shoot lightning?
Yep, those ones. It sounds crazy, but it actually works. It just goes to show that they're not afraid to think outside the box and try unconventional approaches. And this open-mindedness extends to their data analysis as well. They're using some of the most advanced machine learning techniques, including something called transformer models, to make sense of all that complex data coming from the MR1s.
Transformer models. Is that anything like what powers those new AI chatbots everyone's talking about?
You're exactly right. Transformer models are incredibly powerful tools for analyzing complex patterns in data. And they're especially well suited for nanopore sequencing because the signals can be very subtle and nuanced. By applying these advanced algorithms, they can tease out meaningful information that might be impossible to detect otherwise.
So they're really pulling out all the stops when it comes to both the hardware and software sides of this technology.
Absolutely. And that's what makes it so exciting. They're not just relying on one breakthrough or one approach, they're constantly pushing the boundaries on multiple fronts. It's a really holistic way of tackling a complex challenge.
They're like they're building a puzzle.
Mm.
And each piece, the materials, the fabrication techniques, the algorithms, all of it fits together to create something truly remarkable.
That's a great way to put it. And as they continue to refine each piece of that puzzle, the possibilities become even more mind-blowing.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the technical side of things,
Hmm?
but I want to circle back to the human element for a moment. What kind of impact do they hope to have on the scientific community as a whole? It seems like they're not just trying to make a cool gadget. They're trying to change the way science is done.
You're hitting on a really important point. They've explicitly stated that they want to make molecular sensing more accessible and democratic. They believe that by empowering a global community of player scientists, they can accelerate the pace of discovery and lead to breakthroughs that wouldn't be possible within the traditional confines of academia or industry.
It's like they're breaking down the ivory tower of science and inviting everyone in to participate.
Exactly. They see the MR1 and the MSSC as tools for democratizing knowledge and empowering individuals to become active contributors to scientific progress.
That's a really powerful idea,
Hmm.
and it's already having a tangible impact. They've partnered with several universities and research institutions to provide MR1 kits to students and researchers who wouldn't normally have access to this kind of cutting-edge technology.
That's fantastic. And it's not just about providing the tools, it's about fostering a sense of community and collaboration. They're actively encouraging people to share their data, their code, their ideas, to work together to push the boundaries of what's possible.
It's like the open source movement. But for molecular sensing, it's a really exciting time to be following this field. But with all this talk about democratization and accessibility, I'm curious, how do they see this technology evolving in the hands of everyday people? What kind of impact do they envision it having on our daily lives?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's hard to say for sure. But based on their messaging, it seems like they see the MR1 as eventually becoming an indispensable tool for everyone, kind of like a smartphone or a laptop.
So you think there will come a time when everyone has an MR1 in their pocket, using it to analyze their food, monitor their health, or even just satisfy their curiosity about the world around them?
It's definitely within the realm of possibility, especially if they can continue to drive down the cost and make the technology even more user-friendly. Imagine a world where you can instantly check the nutritional content of your food, identify potential allergens, or even verify the authenticity of a product with just a quick scan using your MR1.
It sounds incredibly futuristic,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it feels like it could be just around the corner. It's like they've tapped into this fundamental human desire to understand the world around us, and they're giving us the tools to do it at a deeper level than ever before.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so compelling. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about what that technology enables us to do and the kind of future it allows us to create.
So, for all of our listeners out there who might be feeling inspired right now, eager to jump into the world of molecular sensing and join this movement, what would be a good first step? Where should they go to learn more and get involved?
That's a great question. The best place to start is probably Molecular Reality Corporation's website. They have a ton of information about the MR1, the science behind it, and the MSSC community. They even have tutorials and guides to help you get started with your own experiments.
Oh, that's fantastic. It sounds like they've really thought of everything. But before we all run off to order our MR1s, I want to make sure we take some time to explore the specific applications of this technology in more detail.
Absolutely. We've touched on some of them briefly, but it's worth diving deeper into the potential impact on healthcare, environmental monitoring, food science, and more.
Right, we've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to unpack. But first, let's take a quick break.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive deeper into the possible applications of the MR1. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm particularly interested in the healthcare aspect. Imagine a world where diagnosing diseases is as simple as running a quick scan with your MR1. It's a future full of possibilities. Imagine being able to analyze a drop of blood or saliva sample and instantly get a detailed breakdown of your biomarkers, potential infections, or even genetic predispositions. The MR1 could empower individuals to take control of their health in unprecedented ways.
It's like having a personal lab in your pocket. But let's not forget about the environmental applications. I'm thinking back to that molecular catalog of the planet you mentioned earlier.
Right, the World Particle Project. That's a really ambitious endeavor. But the MR1 could play a crucial role in making it a reality. Imagine a global network of individuals using their MR1s to collect and analyze environmental samples, building a comprehensive database of the molecular world around us.
We could track the spread of pollutants, identify new species, even monitor the health of ecosystems in real time. It's like giving eyes to the planet at a microscopic level.
Exactly. And with that kind of data, we could make more informed decisions about conservation efforts, resource management, and environmental protection. The possibilities are truly staggering.
It's like we keep saying, this technology has the potential to revolutionize so many different fields. But I'm curious, with all this talk about the future, are there any concrete examples of how the MR1 is being used right now to make a difference?
There are already some really promising projects in the works. For example, some researchers are using the MR1 to study the microbiome, the trillions of bacteria that live in and on our bodies. By analyzing the unique molecular signatures of these microbes, they're gaining new insights into everything from digestion and immunity to mental health and even athletic performance.
That's amazing. So we're already seeing real-world applications in a field as complex as the human microbiome. What about other areas, like food science? You mentioned earlier that the MR1 could be used to analyze food for things like allergens and nutritional content. Is that actually happening?
It's still early days, but there are some really exciting developments in that area. For example, some companies are exploring the use of the MR1 to create portable food scanners that can detect contaminants, verify the origin of ingredients, or even analyze the ripeness of produce.
So imagine going to the grocery store and being able to scan an apple with your MR1 to see its sugar content, its pesticide levels, or even just how long ago it was picked. It's like having a superpower in the produce aisle.
You could definitely change the way we think about food and make more informed choices about what we eat. And the applications go beyond just consumer products. Imagine using the MR1 to monitor food safety throughout the supply chain, from farm to table.
It could help prevent outbreaks of foodborne illnesses, reduce food waste, and even ensure the authenticity of high-value products like wine and olive oil.
Exactly. And the potential doesn't stop there. Researchers are exploring the use of the MR1 in fields as diverse as forensics, archaeology, and even art restoration. It's really a tool that can be applied to almost any area where understanding the molecular world is important.
It's incredible to think about the sheer breadth of applications for this technology. But as with any powerful tool, there's always the potential for misuse. Have there been any discussions about the ethical implications of making molecular sensing so readily available?
That's a really important question, and it's one that the scientific community is grappling with as we speak. As the technology becomes more powerful and more accessible, it's crucial that we think carefully about the potential risks as well as the rewards.
Right. It's like we've unlocked this amazing new power, and now we need to make sure we use it responsibly.
Exactly. It's about having a thoughtful and nuanced conversation about the potential benefits and challenges of this technology and ensuring that it's developed and used in a way that benefits all of humanity.
It's a big responsibility.
Yeah.
But I'm hopeful that we can rise to the challenge, after all. We're not just talking about molecules and algorithms here. We're talking about the future we want to create.
Well said. And ultimately, the future of this technology lies in the hands of individuals like you, the ones who are curious, who are eager to learn, and who are passionate about using knowledge to make the world a better place.
That's a perfect note to end on. So, to all of you listening out there. If you're feeling inspired, if you're ready to dive into the world of molecular sensing and be a part of this incredible journey of discovery, I encourage you to take that first step. Check out Molecular Reality Corporation, learn more about the MR1, and who knows, you might just find yourself on the front lines of a scientific revolution.
It's an exciting time to be exploring the molecular world, and the future is full of possibilities.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, keep exploring the fascinating world of science and technology.